Thank you, Dr. Fairuz, for including me in your course. Dr. Seema has showed a plethora of very interesting orbital cases, and in some of my slides, you may see some overlap between the entities. So I will just so my area is pediatric eyelid and conjunctival lesions, and briefly I will mention about when to intervene in these conditions. So in the coming few minutes, what we are going to see is some of these conditions, which are the most common conjunctival and eyelid tumors in children, like choristomatous lesions. We will see some melanocytic lesions. We will also see some vascular lesions, benign epithelial lesions, and some of the malignant lesions. Mostly malignant lesions which appear in eyelid and conjunctiva are actually primarily coming from the orbit, and not very rarely they arise primarily from the conjunctiva or lid tissues. Mostly they are coming from the orbit, as Dr. Seema has just shown. So let us begin with this. Yeah. So the first, one of the most common conjunctival choristomas or the conjunctival lesions that we see in pediatric age group is this. So most of us would recognize what it is. It's basically a yellowish, whitish kind of a firm mass, which is kind of straddling across the limbus, encroaching onto the cornea. And we know that this is nothing but a limbal dermoid. Now, limbal dermoids are fairly common, and and when do we treat them? Unless they are causing a lot of cosmetic deformity, they are very extensive, causing amblyopia. We generally do not do anything about them. But in case they are leading to a lot of astigmatism or a lot of functional problems, or patients are very cosmetically conscious, then these dermoids can be excised, and one has to be careful that they may have a deeper extension into the cornea. At that point of time, the cornea surgeon also has to be ready for a possible lamellar keratoplasty if required. Now, basically, choristomas, what are choristomas? Choristomas are nothing but a bunch of normal cells, normal tissue, but which is present at an abnormal site where it is not supposed to be present. The next common type of choristoma that we see is dermolipoma. Now, dermolipoma again is something which is present since childhood, and parents usually bring the child because of cosmetic reasons, or they feel that there is this fleshy mass. It usually appears as a yellowish kind of a mass in the lateral fornix mostly, and what you see on closer examination is maybe you sometimes see fine hair follicles or fine whitish hair growing on the surface of the lesion. Basically, the color is yellowish, and in areas there may be a whitish kind of a hue to these lesions. They may be very small, hidden in the fornix, where they don't cause any cosmetic problem. But in a situation like this, where the dermolipoma is significantly large, there in those cases, you can actually debulk the anterior-most part of the dermolipoma, which is causing the cosmetic problem. And you can actually excise this anterior-most part, cover the bare area with an amniotic membrane graft, which can be sutured or fixed with with this piperine glue, and usually these lesions heal very well with a good cosmesis ultimately. Uh, these are epibulbar osseous choristomas. This is nothing but a kind of a piece of bone which is present over the sclera, and it's stuck on the sclera. So it does not cause any problem, and it's present since birth mostly. And patients usually do not know till late unless they start palpating their eyes, and most of the patients will come with just that thing that they are palpating something abnormal in their eye, and so if you look at it, the most common location is this area, which is supratemporal location. And sometimes patients may complain of grittiness or irritation in the eyes. If you do a scan, you will see some calcification like a bone would give. And simply, if you excise them, you will just get a piece of calcified mass and nothing else. It does not cause any other functional problem as such. Now, complex choristomas are choristomas basically which are little in the sense that they have heterogeneous tissue within them. Now, the earlier choristomas that we saw was like having purely bone or having just fat. But here in complex choristoma, the difference is that these complex choristomas have they can have a mixture of different types of cells within them. So they may have fat cells. You may find lacrimal gland tissue ectopic, or you may find even cartilage or bone in them. So they will have more than one type of tissue in them if you excise and send them for histopathology. The only significance of complex choristoma is that sometimes they may be associated with a rare syndrome which is called nevus sebaceous of Jadasson, which may be associated with some CNS signs like seizures or mental retardation or things like that. Those patients also have typical facial patches of nevi on the face, but it's a rare thing to see. So moving on to epithelial conjunctival lesions. Now this is again one of the commonest type of epithelial conjunctival lesion that we see in children. What you see here is basically a frond-like growth happening in the inferior fornix of a child, and these are multiple lesions that you see here. So what is this? This is nothing but this is just nothing but a papilloma. So if you excise them, simply there are chances that they can recur. So while excising them, you have to be careful that you also cryo the adjacent areas and practice a no-touch technique whereby you don't hold these lesions directly with your forceps. Otherwise, you may end up seeding the rest of the conjunctiva with what is called as HPV, which has been kind of found to be culprit behind these lesions. And these patients in such situations may have more recurrences. So cryotherapy as an adjunct is helpful. Still, some patients have recurrences even though you may take all the precautions, and in those patients, interferon eye drops or mitomycin C eye drops have been tried with some success, and oral cimetidine has also been given in situations like this. Now, primary OSSN or ocular surface squamous neoplasia is extremely rare in children or in pediatric age group, but this is an exception. We all know what this is. This is xeroderma pigmentosa. Now, this is a condition which may predispose even younger children to develop ocular surface squamous neoplasias. And this child came to us with bilateral OSSNs. In fact, one of the eye had gone into phthisis, and the other eye also had florid growth on the surface of the eye. Now, this is one situation. If you see a patient with xeroderma pigmentosa, you need to be a little careful in their examination. Probably this eye could have been saved if the disease was detected early on. The next common thing that we see in pediatric age group is melanocytic conjunctival tumors, the most common being nevus. And nevus is what? Nothing but a patch of pigmentation which is relatively well defined. It may be slightly elevated, present near the limbus in the interpalpebral fissure and sometimes you may see these small feeder vessels. Nothing to be scared of those feeder vessels. They don't implicate a malignancy here in this situation. They're very fine feeder vessels. And if you see these microcysts within the lesion, which may be seen in 60% of these lesions, then you can be reasonably certain that, what you're seeing is a benign lesion and not a malignant one. And if you still have any doubts, you can do an OCT to identify these microcysts and you can get a clear idea. These are the typical locations where nevi can occur in the interpalpebral fissure near the limbus. It may occur on the plica or on the caruncle as well. These nevi carry less than 1% risk of malignant transformation, and mostly it is when they become very dark in color or are present in adulthood or there are multiple recurrences. Now, nevi can also be amelanotic at times, which may be difficult to diagnose, but if you see cystic lesions sometimes in these lesions, cystic areas, then you know possibly that it's a amelanotic lesion. Nevus, sorry. So next is melanocytosis. Oculodermal melanocytosis is an extension of this ocular melanocytosis where the pigmentation also spills over to the skin side. Now in melanocytosis, the conjunctiva is normal, but the pigmentation is confined to the sclera or episclera. What is important here is that you need to screen these patients for presence of uveal melanoma, which may occur in almost 1 to 400 patients. You may also see some pigmentation on the palate or near the hairline, and these patients are predisposed to esophageal and CNS meningeal melanomas as well. So this is something which Dr. Seema had shown, venolymphatic malformations, and sometimes you may see an extension of these under the conjunctiva. This has already been covered. Next common thing is pyogenic granuloma. Pyogenic granuloma is actually not a true tumor, but rather an exuberant fibrovascular response to a previous insult of the conjunctiva, either caused by surgery or a previous infection or a foreign body on the surface. Lymphoid conjunctival tumors, most of the times what we see in children are benign. This patient presented with a medial fornicial mass, which was pinkish in color. And if it was in an adult patient or elderly patient, the chances would have been of lymphoma. But in children, more chances are that it would be a benign thing. It was excised and turned out to be a benign reactive lymphoid hyperplasia. Although Dr. Seema has shown some rare cases of lymphomas also. but those are relatively rare. More common, you will see benign lymphoid hyperplasias. Covering some eyelid tumors. Now, dermoid cysts, already Dr. Seema has shown that the superficial eyelid cysts may appear to deform the eyelids and may appear as a cosmetic blemish, where you can remove them simply through a cosmetically hidden lid crease incision. The classification also, Dr. Seema just mentioned that ISWA classification has kind of changed the way we view these hemangiomatous lesions or vascular lesions on the eyelids and on the conjunctiva. So this patient was of just 1 minute more, Dr. Fairuz.
No
So
problem.
infantile hemangiomas are those which grow over a period of time, and then after a few years they gradually start subsiding. Propranolol works wonders for these kids, and this was a child who presented with extensive facial hemangioma, and this is after a few months of oral propranolol. You can see that the intensity of the lesion has reduced. Another syndromic variation of these venous malformation on the face is seen as Sturge-Weber syndrome, where you see a diffuse port wine stain on the eyelid and also the forehead and the side of nose. What is important is you need to screen these patients for presence of diffuse choroidal hemangioma, which may at times be subtle and difficult to diagnose unless you are specifically looking for it, or unless it has got subretinal fluid, which can cause a decrease of vision. So if there are subtle changes, you may do an OCT and find that the choroidal vessels can be seen to be very enlarged on the affected side as compared to this is the normal side of the same patient. This is the ISWA classification. Venolymphatic malformations already Dr. Seema has covered, so I'll not go into those. AV malformations Dr. Seema has covered. Again, you need to be careful of these high flow malformations. Don't treat them as a venolymphatic or low flow malformation. Otherwise, there can be a lot of bleeding, which may be difficult to handle. The other benign lesion that occurs on the eyelids is neurofibromatosis. Now, this is a child with a plexiform neurofibromatosis, plexiform neurofibroma of the eyelid. And you can also see other signs of neurofibroma on these patients. So the treatment here is debulking, and what we follow is a modified template technique, which was initially suggested by Dr. Honavar, and has been modified a little bit as to include excise the lateral part of the lid, and then we anchor the lateral part of tarsus to the periorbita to give a slightly better cosmetic outcome. Only thing that you need to counsel the parents of these children as to need for possible multiple surgeries, as the neurofibroma also can grow as the child grows up. Rhabdomyosarcoma sometimes may appear as
I'm sure it's
child-presented as last slide. So this may appear as a lump on the eyelid. This also Dr. Seema has shown, but most of these malignancies will have some orbital component. So to summarize, what we saw were some choristomas, some examples of pigmented conjunctival and lid lesions, some examples of vascular malformations and neurofibromas and malignancies. Now, these are the lesions which you would come across most often in the pediatric age group. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Fairuz.